Well, hello and welcome to the Not Alone podcast. Once again, so glad that you're with us as we have it in audio and video. And welcome to the Not Alone podcast studio that we have. Something a little new for us that we're excited about. And I'm also excited about our guest today. He has been a friend to SBCV and Innovative Faith Resources. He's been to our worship and technology conferences as one of our speakers. And without further ado, Mark MacDonald, welcome to the Not Alone podcast.
Thank you so much. I feel like somehow I'm in that studio all the time. So I'm glad that I'm on the podcast. I love helping pastors. Brandon, you know I love your heart and I love what you all are doing. And it's always good to kind of step in and give some guidance to things that are happening in our world today, and what can we learn from them.
Yeah. So just for people who don't know who you are and your background, can you give us a little quick background of Mark MacDonald?
For sure. So I'm Mark MacDonald, and I've spent almost 40 years, which is just crazy,
Come
in
on.
branding, marketing, and ministry. And I started in the corporate world, helping big brands figure out how to connect better with their audiences. And then God kind of rebranded me to use those skills for the church. And so for the last couple of decades, I've been working with pastors and ministry leaders across the country just to clarify their message and rebrand the right way.
Yeah, and I love your book, Be Known for Something. And that's now how many years ago was that you wrote that? Because it's still being used.
Yeah, so it's on the third edition, and that edition just came out this past year. But it's wow, I don't even know. It's 6 or 7 years old now,
Wow.
and it's really crazy. As we do new editions, I actually get to read it all over again just to see what needs to be changed and updated, and it's really still relevant. We need to figure out what we're known for so that we get people's attention.
This is true in the corporate world and in the ministry world, that really who God has made you, what your ministry or mission is, and then who in corporate world, who your customers are, but in the ministry world, who is your mission field and who's part of your congregation. This is true no matter where you look.
Oh man, if we lose sight of the people that we serve, we're going to have a cataclysmic disaster. And when I look at church world today and the scary statistics of how we're not reaching our communities the way that we should, I really believe that we need to start focusing again on our community and not only just know them, but really love them the way that Jesus told us to. And in order to do that, we have to really lean into their felt needs. What are they actually looking for in life? Because if we talk at a different level to what they're actually feeling, then there will be a miss, and ultimately they'll stop listening, and that's where we find ourselves today.
Yeah. I like to look at current events, current things, and see what we can learn from them. And one of those I wanted to talk to you about, I want to pick your brain on this, was Cracker Barrel. We've probably all been there, shopped there, ate there. At one time, I have to be honest, whenever my wife or kids wanted to go to Cracker Barrel, I did not want to go because it just took a long time to get my food. Lately, that's gotten better. So we've gone a little bit more lately, but Cracker Barrel has been in the news and not for the best of things. Maybe just give us a little update on Cracker Barrel. I know it's kind of weird to talk about Cracker Barrel, but let's see what we can learn from what Cracker Barrel just has gone through.
So when something like the Cracker Barrel rebrand disaster happens, I really, as somebody who works in ministry, I see the same patterns that are happening in the church, and that's what I would love to talk about. Oftentimes we have good intentions, but really poor process,
I
and
yeah, I love that. because rather than denigrating what they were trying to do, I was talking about this with Wendy, my wife, and we were talking about Cracker Barrel trying to upgrade and renew things. And actually, their menu is kind of cool, a little bit different. Some of the things that they're trying to do updates things. But I was looking, Mark, that it was a $700 million rebrand. And if you just Google Cracker Barrel marketing issues, what I did, I'm seeing something from PBS, Branding Strategy Insider, CBS, Ad Age, Kellogg's, Forbes. Everybody's talking about them and saying that they didn't know who they were and who they served.
Well, and it's interesting. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of fried chicken, and and really, when I think
Pot
about it,
roast.
yeah. But when you think about all the PR that they got, and oftentimes we always think of PR on the positive side, but the negative PR that they got was probably worth about what they paid for. But it's a very difficult way to actually get in the news. And I'm sure that they're somewhat licking their wounds, as you know, as we heard when we're recording this today, or yesterday, they came back and they re-emphasized the fact that yes, we lost sight of our audience, so we're pausing everything. We're going back to the old logo. We're they're even saying, so if your store has not been updated, don't worry, it won't be updated. Which, I mean, just to even say that out loud, it just almost rings wrong. And like you, I think we're alike. I'm a change person. I
Yeah.
I like change mostly. So when I heard, hey, they're going to go through, a rebuilding, a rebranding, renovations, I thought, the last time I was in there, it smelled a little musty. There were probably a little bit of dust on the rafters. The lattice work probably needed a little bit of updating. So every part of me just said, well, it's probably about time. But then, like, step by step by step, they just got it wrong. And
It's just from the logo alone, which a lot of people couldn't stand when they came out with just a plain Cracker Barrel logo, no barrel and no Unker Herschel. And it was like, you can't look at a logo and say, I know the intents of your heart by your logo. I can't do that. But people were doing that, which tells me that they didn't really think about what they were doing. And I'm sure they did for $700 million, but what was the problem here?
oh man, and really, what we need to concentrate on today is how do we help churches avoid all that pain,
Yeah.
and figure out how they can rebrand, because a lot of churches today are going through that process of, you know what, maybe we need to become a little bit more modern looking, or sound a little bit more modern looking, or maybe we should get rid of our pews and go to chairs, like all of those things. And fortunately, after working with hundreds of churches, we've never had a disaster like this. So I really believe that we have kind of a process that I think that everyone needs to lean into.
Right.
And so, when I look at this, like, I just almost, I can, my kids have grown now. I have grandkids now, and the grandkids live in Canada, so they've never done this. But I can remember with my kids, we're headed in the car, they're in the back seat. Someone says, I'm hungry. And I see the Cracker Barrel sign. I immediately, I picture that rocking chair and the fried chicken and the nostalgia. But then Cracker Barrel decides we're going to change all of that. So they introduce this new logo. I don't even know. The people who are probably listening to this, you've seen it because it's been plastered everywhere. They talk about these remodel plans, but then they immediately got this massive blowback. Um, you know, this backpedaling that they're doing. I mean, what can pastors actually learn from all of this?
Yeah.
And I don't know what you want to talk about, but I kind of have 5 lessons that they should learn from the Cracker Barrel disaster. And the first
I love
thing
it.
is
Go for
is
it.
don't confuse people. And we're all called to reach a group of people, and our churches have been placed by God into a community, and you've got to love them. You can't confuse them. People knew Cracker Barrel for, the comfort and the tradition, that old country store. And that was so controlled, we expected it on a regular basis. We knew what that was going to feel like. And then all of a sudden it changed. And we call that the thread, that thing that you become known for. And if you change too quickly, you'll end up confusing people because you're already known for something and it feels drastically different. That new logo is so modern and clean, and it's probably what a lot of people have done with their brands. They've kind of stripped away a lot of that, the additional things that they don't think are necessary. But we really have to be concerned about changing too quickly or removing too many things, especially if it touches the thread, that thing that you're known for.
That's so good. And obviously you have to figure out and know, what are you known for? What, or for me, sometimes when I'm working with churches, and then I have to say, well, let's go back, because this is a spiritual issue. What has God called you to? So there's a church in Richmond that really is called to reach those who are unreached, those who are unheard, those who are really down, and so that's who they're called to do. So that's their thread. It's like we can't come up with our own thread in the church. We have to wait for the Lord to kind of infuse that into us. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And really well said. We need to figure out who is it that who lives around us. That's your growth potential. That's where people need to actually be paying attention to the church. And we need to lean into their felt needs. What are they actually concerned about on a regular basis? What are they waking up concerned about? The the concerning thing that we oftentimes get pushback from is, well, we need to be about the gospel. And the problem is that if the church talks gospel too fast, the average person in the community doesn't even know that they need the gospel. And so what it does is it talks over what they're looking for. We have so much noise and so much information that's out
Yeah.
there that we're really only looking for solutions. We're just looking for a better solution. And I posted a little bit ago. People aren't looking for a better sermon; they're looking for a better solution. And I got a little bit of pushback. Our sermons need to be a better solution to them. And that means that we need to reach into their lives, talk to them on a solution level, in other words, a pain point that they have, and then you can pivot towards the gospel. But oftentimes, you know, we end up confusing everything by introducing the gospel too early. And a good brand should clarify your message, not confuse your message.
Yeah.
So we just need to make sure that that we know who we're talking to, have a stereotypical description of them, that's called a persona. What are their needs, concerns, and goals that they are really concerned with today, and then how do we become a solution to those, and we'll get their attention, and with that attention then we need to lead to the gospel.
That's great. No, that's so don't confuse them. What else?
Don't confuse people. And then two, this one, when I wrote it, I thought, okay, talk about something that we can unpack, and we might not get to any other point, but
No, it's a deep part too.
nostalgia. nostalgia is powerful.
Okay.
Customers loved the old Cracker Barrel experience. The change felt like betrayal. So, pastors, members feel the same way about church traditions. So, and I know that, Brandon, we've talked about this in the past. You know, we all joke about the church never done that way before, then we don't want to do it again. Like we don't want to do anything new and different. So there's a huge tension between traditions, nostalgia, and modernizing. This is where I throw it to you and say, so what are your thoughts on this, Brandon?
Thank you. You at very hard subject here. You know, it's interesting because I'm going to pivot to the gospel because when you are a gospel based church with a gospel based ministry, some of these things work themselves out because you're going to always the foundation, the firm foundation, as we know, is God's word, prayer, and spreading the gospel. When that is my foundation, the other stuff I look at when it's marketing, if you will, or branding is more of the communication of who we are. The foundation doesn't change. We know that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, which means I can go back to some very tried and true traditions and use those. We shouldn't like I'm a interim worship leader at a church in Richmond. I love to bring back some hymns sometimes, and even yes, even a cappella. You know why? Because I love to hear the voices. I love I love sometimes the instruments to die down. Let's sing those hymns and let's hear each other sing to the Lord. Well, you know how far back does that go? Back to when people started singing. So we can bring in some traditions. We can even bring in some, uh, it's not everything has to be electronic. I love new things. I love QR codes. I love all kinds of things. But we can have paper sometimes. I can have pens. There's certain things that are traditions, but at the same time, I don't like it when, by and large, it feels old and musty. You said musty smell when you walked in. Yeah, there was, dust and must and all that. It's just, I don't know. That is not inviting.
Well,
So if,
oftentimes, because I get to do mystery visits of a church, and
yes, you do.
the church flies me in, and I walk through the doors as though I have never walked through the door of a church before, because I want to be like that person in the community who's never been to this church before, and there's nothing more repulsive than walking through the doors of the church and it smelling like a funeral home, because it doesn't take long before you look around and some of these churches look like a funeral home as well. And so we have to be very careful of all of the senses and the what does it actually feel like. We become nose blind, and I forget who, there's a brand that's talking about nose blindness. But when I travel and I come back home, sometimes I walk through the door of the house and it's like, does our house always smell like that? And then it's like 15 minutes later, I don't even smell it anymore. And oftentimes our churches, we become sight blind and nose blind to things that the community walks in and notices all of those things. So, am I talking about changing our message from the gospel? Absolutely not. I know that's your heart as well. But if you change too much around the gospel, there will be pushback. And I mean, every pastor is going amen to that, because we've all tried it. It's like we've never had drums on the stage. You put drums on the stage and everyone goes, oh my goodness, are we going to become, not about the gospel? And it's like, what do drums have to do with the gospel? But we need to make sure that we figure out what are our traditions, what are the things that will never change in our church, And we need to emphasize that and become known for those things, so much so that we can say, but we're going to start modernizing so that the community will actually pay attention to us. And people don't get as concerned about those minor adjustments that have to be made in order for the community to actually want to be there.
Yeah. Keeping the biblical foundations steady, but as far as when your neighborhood changes or your culture, how can I be culturally relevant without changing anything of my convictions, the foundations of the gospel? So let me just go through. You said, don't confuse, which I loved. The nostalgia, there can be positiveness with that, right?
There can be. And I guess that in that nostalgia is powerful. Remember that people won't fight for your future if they don't recognize themselves in it. So we have to make sure that we say we are the church. The members make up the church. One pastor should not come in and make all the changes. It's a disaster waiting to happen. And so you've got to make sure that the members of the church, actually feel part of this. One of the crazy statistics that I oftentimes see when we do a demographic study of a reach area, most local churches reach area where they're actually pulling people from, the average age is in their mid 30s. Sometimes it's the lower 30s. And then I walk through the doors of the church and it feels more like a funeral home. Sometimes it even feels like a senior's home. And so what ends up happening, we say, well, everyone's welcome here. But if it feels like you're walking into your grandmother's living room, it's awfully hard for people in the community to say, I feel like I fit in there. So there's got to be a proper balance between who are the people in your community and how do you become welcoming to them without changing the message.
Yeah. So you've hit two of the three.
Oh, okay. So
Do we have time for?
Oh yes,
Let's go through.
let's do this quickly because these ones they get easier.
Okay.
3 is just test before you launch. Now, Cracker Barrel said that they did some testing. I would like to believe that they did testing with people who are like brand advocates for them, people who go on a regular basis. But I don't think that's what happened. I think what they ended up doing was say, okay, so we need to talk to people who have never been to a Cracker Barrel before and say, do you like this? Do you like that? And that's where we really have to lean into who we are in our pews and really test with loyal members before unveiling anything. Remember, the brand represents them, and we have to make sure that we take them into the future, and we have to give them some good reasons. Oftentimes, we deal with pastors, and we give them a lot of research and a lot of, good information of what they need to be aware of. And then after many hours of talking, they make decisions. But remember, the people in the pews haven't gone through that process. So
Right.
we've got to make sure that we take them on that journey and test rebranding ideas with a small group. It's difficult to do with everybody. Get feedback and then adjust to make sure that it does feel relevant to them.
I heard this one time from a mentor of mine that was talking about when you're leading people, and I'm thinking of pastors here, but any leader, that just remember that somebody's present. If you're leading, the people you're leading, their present is your past. Your present is their future, and your future is something they can't even see yet. So many pastors are not, they're thinking of what's next. Well, the people that you're leading, they're just barely catching up to your past. So just remember, if you move too fast, you leave everybody behind. And then remember that as the Lord tarries, time is your friend. Time allows you to make changes on a very calculated and careful basis. What do you say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, ultimately, test your message in a small room before shouting it from the stage. I mean, when you even think through that, it's like oftentimes you've worked to change things internally, but you've got to take the time to make sure you change it externally as well. You know, a lot of times pastors say to us, if only we could change the name, if we could only change, drop the denomination, everything would be perfect. But outside of the church, it'll be, you'll be known as the church formerly known as Prince. It's like, it's like you change the name, but everybody in the community goes, "Oh no, that's the First Baptist Church from down the road." So we have to be really mindful of nobody likes a lot of change, and the other pushback to all of this is that oftentimes we know that in marketing, the all new has powerful. So when someone says the all new church, but the problem with most churches today is new is not all that new. Oh man, we're going to be all new and different this fall. And it's like, I asked the pastor, what are you changing? And they're like, oh, we've switched. We're going to be at 11:15 instead of 11 o'clock. And it's like, that's not new.
And actually, you'll turn people off because if you promote something that is new and it isn't new, then you've just lost credibility. So be careful with that. I don't want to belabor because I think I want to hear these last 2 points.
Okay, number 4 is
Yeah.
remember your rebrand isn't a logo. Cracker Barrel focused on a new look instead of the real issue. And that's what we need to, as a church, we need to just say, okay, what are the real issues here? And how do we change those things? Because if Cracker Barrel really talked to people who go on a regular basis, the one thing I hear all the time, it's exactly what you said, and it's customer experience. The experience needed to be, it just needs to be tweaked a little bit. And I would even say their food quality needs to be improved just a little bit. From, you order it and you might see a picture in the menu, but it's not what you get. And so all of those things need to be looked after. And sometimes, when we look at the church, don't just change colors, fonts, and logos, because your rebrand is clarifying your brand promise to your community. You got to figure out what is the brand promise, the thing that will be delivered consistently. That could be something that's very gospel centered. What we've discovered, if it's really gospel centered, a lot of people in the community don't know that they need that. But it needs to be something that will lead to the gospel. We don't want to shut doors. We want to open doors so that people will come in and actually understand what the gospel is all about.
Love it. And what's the last one?
Okay, and then the last one. This is the best one, Brandon. Get expert guidance. Oh my goodness, number 5. So Cracker Barrel tried to be trendy, but forgot who they were. SBCV, I think of them and I immediately go to "You're Not Alone." And that's the brand promise. And since the people who are listening to this are probably part of the SBCV, you are not alone, so don't go it alone. Work with people like IFR, Innovative Faith Resources, or if you want to work with us, we can work through IFR. But just work with people who understand branding, rebranding, and essentially we need to make sure that we work with people who understand the community's needs so that you can fall in love with them all over again.
That is so good. And by the way, this goes from churches that are just starting or even pre-launch, we call it, with church plants, to churches that have been around for hundreds of years. And the reason I say that is I've seen some church planters in trying their best to let people know they're there and they want, obviously, people to come to their church. but the way that they position themselves is, look how much we have to offer and look at how big we are. And they haven't even started yet. And so when you actually try to go there, you realize, yeah, it's just starting, which if they would be honest about who they were, they would get people who want to be part of that journey with them. Same
Yeah,
thing with an older church.
don't be something that you're not. Authenticity screams louder than anything else in the church. And if you're inauthentic, it becomes confusing. It goes back to point number one. You're promising something to your community. They walk through the doors. If you don't have a great nursery, if you don't have a great children's program, you don't have something that helps them with financial needs and all of the things that your community are looking for, then don't promise it.
Yeah. Be who you are. God's made you who you are. If there's places that God shows you need to improve in those areas, because he probably has that for you for your mission field. So can you remind us of the 5 points again?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I've got to do this from memory. So don't confuse people.
I love that.
And then second thing is nostalgia is powerful. Lean
Yes.
into it. Like traditions are not bad, especially if it includes the gospel in traditions, even though
Yes.
we could talk about that. Number three, test before you launch.
Yes.
Number four, rebrand is not a logo, it's a brand promise. And it's altering that brand promise, because logos don't fix confusion. A brand is a story, not a symbol. Like, just
Man, I love that.
keep going through. It's got to be a good story and a story that they want to adopt. And then finally, get expert guidance. Somebody who will not make you feel alone.
Man, thank you so much. That is so powerful. I love it. I always love talking with you. You and I have similar hearts in this, to help churches and ministries to tell their story, their God story, in a better way, so that it will attract people, not just to them, but to the Lord, to the Savior that is waiting to meet them.
Amen. Amen. And ultimately they need the gospel. Get their attention so that you can tell them about the gospel.
Mark, thank you so much. Can you just tell people how to find you on the thing called the World Wide Web?
Yes. I would love if you just go to beknownforsomething.com. That's beknownforsomething.com. Then that'll tell you, you can have a 1 hour discovery call with me and we can talk about some of your specific needs. Or you can look at our process that walks through how to do a church rebrand effectively, so that you don't fall into all the traps that Cracker Barrel went through.
Yeah, that's great, man. And of course, you can always reach out to innovativefaith.org. We love to help you as well. We're great partners with Be Known for Something. So, Mark, thank you so much for your time today. So good.